September 19th, 2024, Sheriff Mickey Stines walks into Judge Kevin Mullins' chambers and fatally shoots his friend and co-worker. A video inside the judge's chambers captured the shooting, which appeared to show Mullins trying to hide beneath his desk as Stines repeatedly fired shots. Three days before that, Mickey Stines sat for his deposition in the civil lawsuit against one of his former deputies, Ben Fields. Somewhere in between the cover-ups and gossip of this small Kentucky town was a corrupt group of people all hiding each other's skeletons. The rumors and accusations of what was occurring in Mullins' chambers after hours was undoubtedly the catalyst of it all. What secrets were being held, and who was holding them? The civil and criminal lawsuits against former Deputy Ben Fields unearthed a scandal entailing an abuse of power towards inmates within the Letcher County Sheriff's Office and court system. Along with the now convicted abuser and former Sheriff Deputy Fields, the Sheriff of Letcher County was also named in the civil suit. Mickey Stines was now in the hot seat, and whether or not he was aware of what Deputy Fields was hiding is yet to be determined. According to both lawsuits, then Deputy Ben Fields ran the county's home detention program. This was a contract labor position with East Kentucky Correctional Solutions, which Fields held in addition to his position in the sheriff's office. This is the same position that Mickey Stines once held before being elected as sheriff and had recommended Fields take over for the county. East Kentucky Correctional Solutions provided the equipment and monitoring of house arrest inmates. The equipment is what many are familiar with as ankle monitors. The lawsuit said the system puts women inmates at risk of sexual exploitation. Adkins alleged she couldn't afford the $85 weekly fee charge for her ankle bracelet, and Fields provided favorable treatment for sex. 2 days after Adkins' suit was filed, then Sheriff Mickey Stines fired Fields. 3 days after Stines gave a deposition in the suit, he allegedly murdered Letcher District Judge Kevin Mullins. We do hope that the trial will answer all questions, but until then, we are going to dive into the testimony of Sheriff Mickey Stines on September 16th, 2024. During the deposition, they asked Mickey about his police training. The questioning became a little bumpy. They had to take a break, and his lawyer informed the court that his client had California encephalitis, which causes some issues when he is under stress. He said it was from tick bites. Stines worked for the Neon Police Department for 7 months prior to being hired at the Letcher County Sheriff's Office in 2002. However, due to budget restraints, the department did not send him to the academy for training. Stines said that the deputy sheriff also has a training academy that is 20 weeks long, but court security training is only 2 weeks long. He said he was given 1 year after being hired to attend the training. However, years later, his supervisor at the time said he would grandfather him in since he had already been working the roads and the court security. He did take pre-pops, which is their fitness course, and he had to undergo training with East Kentucky Correctional Solutions regarding the paperwork and the operations of the ankle monitors he distributed. He worked as a deputy for 17 years before becoming the sheriff of Letcher County, Kentucky. Upon being elected sheriff, he has to attend a sheriff's conference annually. The training includes legal updates, PTSD awareness, following policies, and supervising employees. Stines said he has never been accused of any SA or harassment. He also said that this incident with Fields is the only time he has ever been responsible for investigating any internal employee accusations. Mickey said he immediately reported the allegations on Deputy Ben Fields to the state police, and they declined to investigate it. He said he spoke with the county attorney and the Commonwealth attorney as well. Mickey advised that the position with East Kentucky Correctional Solutions was a contract labor job for the supervision of the ankle monitoring. These ankle monitors were issued to inmates on the house arrest program. The position paid via commission at $25 a hookup per person and then $3 a day. The court advised that Ben Fields made $30,000 in 2021 with East Kentucky Correctional Solutions. Stines told the court that when he was working with individuals in regards to their monitors, he would make them come in at the end of the day at 4:30. All money transactions from the defendants would receive a written receipt. During the deposition, we learned that the women who Stines reported to at East Kentucky Correctional Solutions did not have a bank account, so he would mail money orders to her for the cash received from house arrest inmates. An interesting question that came from the claimant's attorney was whether Mickey's supervisors, the sheriff at the time, had any sort of agreement with East Kentucky Correctional Solutions. Could there have been kickbacks for the use of this company? Then again, a few pages in, they asked if there were any type of agreements between East Kentucky Correctional Solutions and the county or the jail. Mickey said he was not aware. They asked Mickey to explain the procedures when a person on house arrest would go out of range. He said he would attempt to contact them via phone and then their next of kin. Once he was able to reach them, he would confirm their location and then direct them home or to contact the court for special permission for trips like going to the doctor's office and such. If they were in violation, he would inform the judge. At times, there were bench warrants issued. Sometimes the judge would allow them a pass. When he was still a deputy, Mickey also held a third job as hospital security. He admitted to wearing his sidearm and duty belt when he would work at the hospital. He would also use the sheriff cruiser when performing other tasks. Into page 42 of the deposition, they finally began asking him questions regarding Ben Fields. Stines said the reason he recommended Fields to replace him as the bailiff was because he was polite, professional, and dependable. We learned that Mickey Stines held a weekly poker party at his home. Fields was invited to those gatherings along with other deputies. During the hiring process, we have mentioned what they called pre-pops. One step in this training is the taking of a lie detector test. When they began to ask if Stines had reviewed Fields' polygraph results, his attorney chimed in several times. Apparently, one of the questions pertained to Fields having consumed alcohol while on duty at the jail, and he had admitted to engaging in sexual contact with his wife, also a jail employee, during work hours at the detention center. Stines said he did not recall seeing that information in the polygraph report, and the Department of Corrections, who administers the test, had said that Fields was suitable for the job even after the test was performed. Stines admitted he had only reviewed the test result, not the questions and answers. According to Mickey Stines, Ben Fields' hours as a court service officer were 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. With technology updates, Fields worked with GPS monitors that Stines was unfamiliar with. Remember the name LaShawna? She is the bookkeeper and office manager at the sheriff's office and has held that job well before Stines became sheriff. Ben Fields was terminated by Sheriff Stines in February of 2022 for violating the sheriff's ethical standards policy. Prior to his termination, he was allowed to wear his deputy uniform while he was performing service for East Kentucky Correctional Solutions during court hours or immediately after. He was also issued and had access to a sheriff deputy cruiser. During the deposition, Stines was questioned about office policies. He explained his training of deputies included him giving them a copy of the office policies and advising them to read and become familiar with all policies. There did not seem to be an outline of formal deputy training procedures by Letcher County Sheriff's Office, according to Stines. Other training for computer systems, the use of various equipment required for their job operations, was administered through the Department of Corrections Justice Training. The Letcher County Sheriff Office policies stated an employee was to be approved by the agency head annually via a permit process for any outside employment and extra duty detail. However, according to Stines' deposition, it seems this policy was not always followed. According to policy, the process would start with an outside employment request form that the employee was to complete. On the form, the employees were to provide a statement indicating the services rendered will not be connected to or with security work, investigations, or collection or the possession of property, and will not involve any law enforcement duties. Stines' testimony indicated they do not have such a request form. An example of an outside duty which Stines references was security at a ballgame. Under policy, the fees charged for these types of jobs are to be paid to the sheriff's office, which in turn would pay the deputy based upon their hourly rate. However, Stines advises the deputies were paid direct for these services. There is or was a definite trend in the Letcher County Sheriff's Office that was very informal in regards to policies and procedures. This trend began well before Mickey Stines' time in office. Mickey Stines stated that working as a home incarceration officer with East Kentucky Correctional Solutions is work that provides no real or implied law enforcement services to the employer and it not to be performed during assigned hours of duty. The claimant's attorney then moved on to policy number 5, which is in regards to sexual misconduct within the department. This includes sexual activity while on duty or stemming from the official duty. More specifically, the policy states an employee shall not engage in sexual conduct with another person who is in the custody of law enforcement, as such officer has supervisory or disciplinary authority over such other person. Stines confirmed that Sabrina Adkins and Jennifer Hill were both in custody while they were on home incarceration, and Ben Fields held disciplinary authority over them during that time. He also confirmed that during his time in office, no formal training was provided to Mr. Fields regarding this policy. According to Stines' attorney, there were 2 versions of Ben Fields' termination, a draft and then one approved by the county attorney, Jamie Hatton. These included suspension and termination letters. Ben Fields' representatives had apparently only turned over the draft copies for discovery. His attorney then produced the official county attorney approved letter dated February 2nd, which referenced ethics policy violations and stated the reason for his termination was conduct unbecoming of an officer. When asked, Stines admitted Fields had absolutely violated the sexual misconduct policy, but he did not reference sexual misconduct in the letter due to County Attorney Hatton's guidance. When pressed on the issue as to whether Stines agreed with Hatton's version of the letter, Stines repeated himself saying, "That is the one that the county attorney recommended." Stines also confirmed that he did not always consult the county attorney when disciplining or terminating an employee, but Fields' position was unique because of criminal theft. They then moved on to when Stines became aware of Ben Fields' misconduct. Stines said he was notified about the misconduct via a phone call from a reporter. The deposition also disclosed that Fields' misconduct had been previously reported to the Letcher County Sheriff's Office by a known felon, Chris Triplett, in mid-December. Stines said he was not aware of that report until this litigation was filed. He did later ask his deputies about the complaint, and they informed Stines that Triplett did not come in and file that complaint. Stines said he made his employees verbally aware that if there were ever any complaints filed, he wanted to speak to the individual filing the reports. However, this particular individual may not have been taken seriously due to his criminal background. Stines was then questioned about the specific wording in the sheriff's policies regarding how the office would address citizens' complaints. He admitted he did not recall ever employing this policy. When asked if he was aware of anyone, other than the reporter, filing a complaint against Ben Fields, Stines' response was, "I have received nothing in formal writing, but the county attorney tells me if somebody wants to make a complaint to put it in writing." Stines was then asked to reference the policy regarding County Sheriff's Office informational public brochures, which inform members of the public what to do in case of accommodations, suggestions, dissatisfaction, or complaints. The policy states that the brochures will be maintained in all police, sheriff facility lobbies, sheriff informational desks, etc. Mickey Stines said he did not recall any such brochure the Letcher County Sheriff's Office provided, but his attorney jumped in and mentioned the county website would have this information. Again, Stines is asked if he received any type of complaint about Ben Fields prior to the reporter, and Mickey replied, "Not in writing." So they asked, "What about verbal complaints?" Stines said, "Yes, but he did not recall how many. He would tell them to put it in writing, and if they refused to put it in writing, he would get their story verbally and then talk with the deputy whom the complaint was about." When asked if any verbal complaints he received were in regard to sexual misconduct, Stines said, "Not that I recall." When asked if he ever investigated any verbal sexual misconduct complaints, Stines' response was, "If you call an investigation listening to the person, taking the information, and then talking with the deputy and seeing what happened, Yes. Stines also confirmed that he had not written up any reports as a result of his investigations, but he would inform the complainant if they wanted to attempt to file criminal charges, they can see the county attorney or we will get an outside agency in. He then went on to explain that most people decline that option and tell Stines to speak with his deputy. Just a reminder to listeners, when Stines approached the state's Department of Corrections in regards to Fields, he was shut down. The complainant's attorney then specifically references complaints about former Deputy Ben Fields. They asked if there was any kind of investigation conducted by Stines' office related to the allegations against Fields from late January or early February 2022. Stines said, "No. I just took the initial information and I would review it with the county attorney and he would give me advice on what I needed to do." He went on to advise when the reporter called. He then called Deputy Fields and spoke with him about the allegations. And then Judge Kraft and Robbie Kinzer came to Stines' office and gave some information. I am not sure on the details. After that, I consulted with County Attorney Hatton. At the time that the County Attorney Hatton came to Stines' office, LaShawna Frazier, the office manager, was with Stines. This all occurred on January 31st, 2022. Mickey also said he spoke with the Commonwealth attorney, Edison Banks, at this time. They then laid out the timeline of events. After speaking with County Attorney Hatton, Brianna Cornett came in. After that, Stines spoke with Hatton and Edison again, and he was told to get the name and number. He was told, "Do not take any information from them. We are going to talk to the Kentucky State Police to see if they will investigate this. We work too close with you. I don't want an investigation of this magnitude done internally." Commonwealth Attorney Banks also said he was going to contact the Attorney General's office, and they would take over the investigation. When Brianna Cornett returned to Sheriff Stines' office again, he took her name and number and did not recall any further conversation with her during that visit. It was at this time Stines discussed knowing Brianna Cornett's mother very well since they went to high school together. He also mentioned that Brianna had been in the criminal system for years. The attorney questioning Stines then moved on to Exhibit 9, which was the Sheriff's Office policy in regards to training directive for high-risk critical tasks. The policy stated that the employees should receive annual training on these items, but Stines said the county did not provide this training. It was administered by the state, some on annual basis and some every 2 years. When asked about the required annual training regarding sexual harassment, external sexual misconduct by officers in this policy, Stines said he did not recall that particular training being provided by the Letcher County Sheriff's Office or the state. Stines' attorney did interrupt the questioning to advise the state would be the ones to keep any documentation on this. Now they move on to an exhibit which was a Facebook communication thread between Mickey Stines, Ben Fields, and Jason Eccles in June of 2021. The group was titled Fat Boys. Stines said he did not consider his friendship with Fields and Eccles different than any other employee relationship he had. He considered all employees his friends, his work family. He said since the Fields incident, he spoke with each employee and said it will never happen again. In June 2021, Eccles and Fields were both working as deputy sheriffs. In the Facebook messages between the three, there seems to be work discussion scattered with some jokes here and there. During Stines' deposition, the focus became about how unprofessional the messages actually were. For example, in this same thread, Eccles posted an image of naked policemen, and Stines responded, "Good morning, boys, LOL." Stines said he would then redirect the deputy's focus by messaging something about work-related matters in hopes that it would get them back on track. Stines' attorney said by bringing in these private messages, the court was trying to annoy, embarrass, or harass his client. The next message they referenced was in regards to prisoners being transported. Fields writes, "I think they both like the same sex, though." Jason Eccles replies, "You mean like freaky sex? Hardcore?" When Mickey Stines was asked about his reaction to these messages, Mickey said, "To be honest, I do not read a lot of these because they are so childish. I get a lot of messages that I don't even pay attention to." However, the attorney pointed out that Stines had responded to this specific message about whether or not the deputies needed to take 2 separate vehicles to transport the prisoners. The attorney then questioned Stines about the inappropriateness of the conversation and asked if he disciplined or reprimanded them for having these conversations. Stines again advised that he did not recall. The attorney then references a discussion on the Facebook message feed that refers to whether they are all meeting up for poker on Sunday. Stines is asked about the consumption of alcohol at these gatherings. He said that since becoming sheriff, he does not drink a lot because he could be called out at any time. The next thread that was mentioned in the deposition was a private Facebook message between Stines, Eccles, Deputy Norris, and Christine Bowling. Bowling was an office employee, administration assistant to Lashana. Deputy Norris posted a screenshot making a joke about sexual arousal in Crown Victoria vehicles. It was one that he had sent his wife and then shared with the group of coworkers. Again, they call Stines out for the inappropriateness and asked if he had disciplined or reprimanded Norris for his message, and Stines said he did not recall. When asked if he ever had reprimanded Norris, Stines said, "Yes, often verbally." Another private message between Stines and former employee Seth Whitaker was then addressed. Seth left the sheriff's office for a better employment opportunity. In the message, Stines had posted an image of a strip club in Johnson City. Mickey said he sent it to his deputy because he thought it was funny. The next message was in August of 2021 between Stines, Fields, and Eccles. Eccles had posted an image with a joke referencing penis size. The three discussed how funny the image was. They go on to pull up various other messages, all of a sexual nature and making fun of one another. Stines admits that he was setting a horrible example for his employees. When asked if any of these messages violated the Letcher County Sheriff's Office policy, Mickey said, "Yes, conduct unprofessional." The court then played a 4 to 5 minute audio recording of Brianna Cornett, twice referencing her mother speaking to Stines about Brianna's issues with Ben Fields. Stines advised the court that the information was not true, and he had not spoken to her mother about Brianna's issues with Fields. The attorney repeated what was said on the recording. Brianna said her mother went to Sheriff Stines and said, "I have to live in this town, but I know why he won't give it to her." She was referencing why Fields would not put Brianna Cornett back on home incarceration. According to the deposition transcript, most of Cornett's charges were drug-related. The name Chris Triplett is mentioned again by the attorney questioning Stines. Stines confirms knowing of him from his long criminal history. The attorney informs Stines that on December 15th of 2021, Triplett reported the essay of Jennifer Hill by Deputy Fields to the Letcher County Sheriff's Department by telephone and in person at your headquarters downtown. Stines said they received no such report. The attorney asked if Stines had inquired with his staff about such reports made by Triplett at that time. He said he did, but does not recall their response. This would have occurred after the lawsuits were filed. The attorney then asked Stines if he was aware on or about December 15th of 2021, Chris Triplett being pulled over by Deputy Norris for having a tinted license plate cover. Stines said he did not recall. Stines said he did not recall when he became aware of these allegations from Jennifer Hill. The attorney then asks about the women who work in the sheriff's office who would have answered the phone. Stines said that would be Christine Bowling or Lashana Frazier. Stines then requested a moment to step out and speak with this attorney. After the break, the attorney asked Stines if he recalls specifically whether he spoke to Deputy Whitaker about receiving a report related to sexual misconduct of Jennifer Hill by Ben Fields. Stines responds, "I do not recall." Stines then confirms that Deputy Whitaker is no longer working at the Sheriff's Department. He is asked what females would be at his office dressed in uniform. They then move on to ask about Stacey Yates, and Stines said he is familiar with him because he has been in court as well. Stacey Yates filed an emergency protective order in January of 2022, but Stines said he is not always aware of those types of orders. Then Stines is asked how he knows Robbie Kinser, and he explains that he is the drug court coordinator for Letcher County, but he did not interact with him regularly on a weekly basis. Stines explains the deputy who would have worked more closely with Kinger would have been Deputy Eccles, Mike Infus, or Keith Smith. They discussed Holly Boggs. She is the drug court worker for the state, and she is Ben Fields' sister. Then they mentioned Elena Blackford, who Stines said he was not familiar with. Then Chad Clemens, whom Stines said was a worker for the drug court. The attorney then asks Stines if it would make sense for Ben Fields to be in a hearing about redacted name in a drug court. The attorney said this drug court session had discussions between Judge Kraft and Ben Fields about the location and residence of Sabrina Adkins. Stines said he did not recall the first time he heard Sabrina's name or met her. Then Stines goes on to admit that when Judge Kraft and Robbie Kinser reported that information to him in his office that day, they both apologized to him for not telling him this information earlier. Reading the discovery evidence, the attorney stated that Robbie Kinser called Stacey Yates and asked him to park across the street behind the apartments so no one would see his car. Stines' attorney objected to how this is relevant to Mickey Stines. After being asked, Stines said he was aware that the information he received from Judge Kraft and Robbie Kinser came from Stacey Yates. Yates had reported some sexual interactions between Ben Fields and Sabrina Adkins to them. Stines said they walked over to his office from the courthouse because they had physical documents to share with him, but he would not accept it from them. He was not aware if they had reported this to anyone else beyond him. The attorney asked Stines if he was aware of any reference of someone trying to get Stacey Yates terminated from drug court. Stines said he had no idea. Stines is then asked if he was aware if Robbie Kinser spoke directly to Brianna Cornett, and he said he did not recall. The attorney then produced a criminal complaint that Ben Fields swore out and asked Stines if a deputy would need to come to him first before they swore out a complaint like this. Stines' attorney interjected and said the type of approval would come from the county attorney. The attorney continued to reference the criminal complaint by stating the offender of home incarceration failed to report to the Letcher County Sheriff's Office. The statement is signed by then Deputy Fields. Stines explains that Fields would have spoken with the county attorney's assistant, Angela Trent, to complete the complaint form. It then was signed by the judge, and it would be placed in the sheriff's computer system as an e-warrant, and everyone at that sheriff's office would have had access to it. Stines confirmed that Ben Fields only had authority to arrest people in court and in courthouse grounds since he was not a road deputy. The attorney asked for Stines to tell them about the phone conversation he had with Ben Fields after the reporter called and told Stines a lawsuit had been filed. Again, Stines says he cannot recall. The attorney said, "I would like for you to try the best that you can, because this is the only chance to ask you about it." Stines said, "That reporter had called and said somebody had filed a lawsuit against him. The rest I cannot recall. It was a brief discussion." Stines said he did not speak with Judge Kraft and Robbie Kinser before they showed up at his office. When pressed on their discussion again, Stines said, "They came over from drug court and told me that Ben had been messing around with a drug court participant, Brianna Cornett, and that Stacey Yates had reported that he had been fooling with Sabrina Adkins, and that is when they mentioned something about messages." Stines said he did not recall if they gave him any copies of these messages, but Kraft and Kinser did advise Stines that they had not reported it to any law enforcement or anybody else. Finally, on page 165 of 196, Judge Mullins is referenced. Stines said he did not know if Judge Mullins was aware. That same day, Mickey Stines calls Kentucky State Police and spoke with Supervisor Derek Sturgill. He said he does not recall whether he told Sturgill about the information that was withheld from him by a court judge and court coordinator, or if he told him he had an employee that had some allegations made against him. "I needed an investigation." Again, Stines does not recall Sturgill's response. Within an hour and a half, the county attorney, Jamie Hatton, came to Stines' office at Stines' request. Stines said that Hatton's advice to him was to send Fields a letter of suspension without pay. Stines also confirmed that he did not instruct Ben Fields to delete any of his Facebook groups or messages, nor did Stines delete any of his own Facebook items. Stines said that Ben Fields did come to his office that same night of January 31st, 2021. He took Fields back to his office and shut the door. The attorney pointed out that there was no witness to this. Stines said he told Fields about the reporter's allegations, and a lawsuit had been filed against him for SA. Stines does not recall if Fields admitted or denied the allegations. Within another hour, Brianna Cornett came to Stines' office. Stines does not recall if he called her up from the jail or if she came from her home. He also does not recall if he requested her appearance in his office. Stines said that when she came in, he briefly met with her out in the front office with LaShawna in attendance. No one else was in attendance. Brianna said that Fields had kissed her in his car. Stines did not make any recorded statements or notes. He asked Brianna for her contact number and her full name and told her that someone would be in touch with her. Stines then called the county attorney and advised him of the meeting. Stines then said he briefly met with Fields on that same evening and gave him the letter of suspension as he told of the allegations from Sabrina Adkins. He said he believed Field did apologize to him. Stines got up and told Fields he needed his weapon and badge. That is when he told Fields that there are others. Fields asked who. Stines informed him it was Brianna. Stines does not recall Fields' response. Stines then called Patty Stockham of East Kentucky Correctional Solutions and advised her that Fields had been placed on suspension without pay. Although he said Stockham was shocked and he had apologized to her, Stines did not recall the remainder of the conversation. The next person Stines spoke with was a few days later. Bert Sloan requested that the investigator come to the jail to discuss an unredacted of inmate and Brianna Cornett. It was at this time that Stines learned Ben Fields' wife had spoken to a co-worker, another jail employee, Lena Hensley, about Sabrina Adkins. Bert Sloan said that whomever is investigating the matter needed to go to the jail and speak with Ben's wife. Stines cannot recall what Ben's wife said to Lena Hensley, nor is he aware if anyone ever went over to speak with them. Stines confessed that during this time, he was tore up and having a bad episode, so his memory is fogged. He did show the attorney his documentation that his office manager assisted him with. He sent in the information to Kentucky Law Enforcement Council advising of a criminal investigation and deputy suspension without pay. Stines admitted that he had left his discussions with the Commonwealth attorney off of his timeline and said Kentucky State Police refused and he would get up with the Attorney General's office and investigate the matter. On February 2nd, Stines terminated Ben Fields after speaking with Bert Sloan. It was at this time during the deposition, Stines advises them he did speak with the Commonwealth attorney, Judge Mullins and Bert Sloan at the courthouse. Stines said that on February 1st, the Commonwealth attorney, Edison Banks, told him that he would have to terminate Ben Fields and to use their letter of termination. He said that same day while in court, he also told Judge Mullins about the lawsuit. He was not sure if Mullins was already aware, and he cannot recall their conversation. On February 10th, Judge Kraft contacted Stines to advise him that Brianna Cornett had given more information on Ben Fields. Stines says he does not recall, but he does remember speaking with Patty of East Kentucky Correctional Solutions again, and she informed him that she was also going to terminate Ben Fields' employment. Stines said he has not had any further communications with Ben Fields since handing him his termination letter and advising him that he was no longer a deputy. Ben Fields' attorney then began asking questions during Stines' deposition. All were just basically reiterating the discussions that Stines had testified to having with Ben Fields. The deposition was then closed. After the Fields scandal became public, Task Home Incarceration and Court-Ordered Services took over the home detention program in Letcher County. The company's owner says representatives only meet with inmates when a camera is present,